Mrs. Shomana Gracia Jacob, ME in Computer Science, lecturer in CPET, Chennai for the past 3 years. She has published 4 national and international papers. She has won Star Achiever Award for academic proficiency.
Welcome to the UGC lecture series in computer science. In today's session, we will begin with the basic concepts of object-oriented programming. Object-oriented programming has certain features that are very special and which have been developed over the C language. From these concepts of object-oriented programming, we will be moving over to how C++ evolved from these basic features. So, what is this object-oriented programming? What is the speciality or significance of this new concept? It is a programming paradigm. Object-oriented programming is a type of programming. It is a new concept of programming in itself. Now, in the previous sessions, we had been seeing about C and how to program using the features available in C. Now, before we move over to C++, which is a OOP language, we have to identify how to program using C++. So, that method of programming itself is defined in this object-oriented programming. So, this uses something called data structures. So, what is a data structure? Structure of data. So, this is just a way of organizing and storing data or storing data in an organized manner. And this includes two concepts, one called data fields and the other is methods. That means the data structure stores and organizes data which can be manipulated using the functions or methods. A method is nothing but a function. So, the way of manipulating the data is done using these functions. As of now, it is necessary for you to know that object-oriented programming paradigm uses data structure concept where we store and organize data in a manner that is that is more efficient than the previous programming languages. And this data structure uses data fields. Data fields is nothing but something that contains the data, and method is something that operates on this data or uses the data. And secondly, we have something called interactions. Interaction, as we all know, it is just a basic English word which means that there is some communication between the data fields. So, there is data, it is stored and organized, there are functions to operate on that data and there is a mode of communication between these functions. So, in this way, when programming is ordered or programming is done, it is called object-oriented programming. Now, this is just a basic introduction. As we see the further concepts of OOP, you will be able to understand better what all other features are involved in this concept. So, first we have something called the object, you have the class, instance, messages and methods, which is nothing but the way of interactions, and two other advanced concepts of inheritance and polymorphism. So, in today's session, we will be seeing the basic concepts of this object, class and so on. So, what is this object? Object also holds the same meaning that we have in the English language. It is nothing but a tangible entity which exhibits some behavior. Now, I can be called as an object, a car can be called as an object. It is some entity that we can physically see and physically feel, and each object has some behavior, it exhibits some behavior, it has some characteristics. So, the features of an object are identified by the state of the object, the behavior of the object and the unique identity. Every object has a unique identity. Now, we will see each of these parts of an object in detail. So, what is the state of an object? What all contributes to the state? State is defined by something called attributes, and these attributes have values. Only when there are attributes of an object and we give some values to those attributes, we can identify the state. For example, as I said, a car is an object. So, when you simply say car, all cars do not look alike and all cars do not belong to the same design or model. So, what all features can explain or describe about a car? One is its color, its model, maybe the number of tires it has, what engine it uses. So, there are so many features which can distinguish or differentiate between cars. So, a car is an object and the state of the car or the description of a car can be given by so many parts of the car. So, each of it contributes to explaining the state of the object. So, state is nothing but in the stationary mode as such how you can explain or describe the object, that is what is called the state of the object. For example, certain objects we say can be in the running state or can be in the stationary state or can be in the slow moving state or reversing state. So, like this each object will have different states which can describe about it. Next we have the behavior of an object. Behavior is how an object responds. It is just the normal English term. Behavior is how an object acts and reacts in terms of its state changes and message passing. So, first you have to know what is a state, and message passing is nothing but the interaction. So, an object as such will remain in some state, but when you interact with that object, when you want that object to do something or when you have some physical force exerted on that object, it immediately gives a response. So, the way it acts normally, at the same time the way it reacts to some message or reacts to some input is called the behavior of an object. It is just equivalent to human behavior. So, when you take the same object of the car, how a car responds when you apply the different gears, how the car responds when you push the steering wheel to the left or to the right. So, based on the input that we give, how the object is responding. So, it can either move forward, it can either reverse, it can go fast, it can go slow. All these are the different behavioral patterns of a car. A car cannot fly, a car can only be on the road. So, the behavior of the car is identified by those limitations. So, that is how you differentiate a car from a plane. So, this is how an object is differentiated by its behavior. Next you have this unique identity of an object. Identity, as we all know, every human has an identity, has a different name, something to differentiate them, to identify them among other people. Similarly, every object has an identity. This identity depends on who is manufacturing that object or who is using that object. So, an example is you can have two tennis balls, they mostly look alike, they have the same color, they have the same shape, mostly the same dimensions also, but they can have different companies which manufacture them, and even if one company is manufacturing them, they would have been manufactured on a different date or at a different time or in a different sequence. So, though the color, the material may be the same, the shape, dimensions may be the same, there will be some identity that differentiates one tennis ball from another. So, both of them are objects which may have the same state and exhibit the same behavior, but they can be identified by this unique identity. So, among the concepts related to an object, only the identity of an object is unique. So, this is what all features relate to the creation of an object in object oriented programming. Next you have something called the class. So, what is the class in object oriented programming? A class is something that defines the behavior of one or more objects. So, you know what is an object, the concept is object oriented programming. So, everything in this programming revolves around the word objects. So, a class is something above the object, it defines the behavior of the object or what all an object is expected to do. So, behavior of the object is the way it acts and reacts. So, what all an object can do in action or what all an object can give in reaction is defined by this keyword class. A set of objects that share common structure and behavior. The set of objects that have a common dimension, a common shape, a common structure and which exhibit the similar kind of features. As I said, two tennis balls can belong to the same class. They share the common, they both do the same things and they have the same structure and behavior. For example, here we have the collection called birds. So, you have the cuckoo, the sparrow and the pigeon, all are birds, they all fly in the same directions. They may not have the same structure, but when you look at all the three, you can identify them as belonging to this class of birds. So, a class is nothing but it defines some common structure which identifies all the members who belong to that class. Now, if you say the same as example you can apply to animals, you can identify a cat, dog as well as a deer as animal, because they are all four-footed creatures which almost have the same structure, which walk on fours. So, they have certain behaviors and certain properties which are common to all the members who belong to that class. So, class is a collection of objects or it is a covering over the objects. That is how you identify a class in OOP. Another definition for a class is it is an implementation of an ADT. So, what is this ADT? ADT stands for abstract data type. So, I will explain what is this abstract data type. it defines something called attributes and methods. Now attribute is nothing but a feature, it is another name or a technical term for a feature. A method is nothing but function. So it defines what are the features of that class and what are the functions that can be performed by the objects of that class. Instances of a class are called objects. Instance of a class in the sense the example of a class. As we said, bird may be a class. Cuckoo is an instance of the class. It is an object of the class which shares the features and the functions which are defined in that class. So that is how classes and objects are related. A class defines the general structure and behavior. An object uses that structure and behavior and it refines it according to the type of object that it is. A class defines properties and behavior of the objects. So there is abstract data type. The word abstract, what is that word abstract means in the sense? It is just a general description which can be modified by the objects. So abstract is nothing but it keeps the essential details of that particular class type. For example, if you say the word bird, the essential details of a bird are that they have feathers, they have wings, they can fly, and each bird flies at a certain height, the speed at which it raises from the ground, all these features are defined in that class. They are further refined or they are further made more specific in that specific object called cuckoo. For example, if you have the object called cuckoo belonging to the class bird, when you say fly, you can give more details about how a cuckoo flies, you can give details about how a cuckoo sings, you can give details about how the cuckoo is, what are its eating habits and how it sleeps, when does it fly, how it takes care of its young ones. So each bird has its own specialized features, but generally they all belong to the class called birds. So an abstract data type means it gives the general specifications of the features and functions. The specific details of the features and functions are defined by each object. So that is why you say a class is an implementation of an ADT. Next you have something called instance or instantiation. As I said, object is an instance of a class. So what is the meaning of that word instantiation? It is a relationship between the class and an instance of a class. So what is the relationship between the class and its instance or its example, the object? As I explained earlier, cuckoo is a bird, cat is animal. Similarly, this particular model is nothing but a car. I am nothing but a teacher and you are nothing but a student. So you are an object and you belong to the class of students. I am also an object and I belong to the class of teachers. So every object has to belong to some class because it gets its features and it gets its functions from the class. If you are a student, the functions of a student are different. The characteristics of a student are different and you possess those characteristics and you belong to the class of students. Among the class of students, there may be good and bad. So that is how an object and a class are related. So instantiation is nothing but creating instances of the class and defining their attributes and functions. So we will see the rest of the concepts in OOP after the break. Welcome back after the break. Now we had been seeing the basic concepts of object oriented programming. We had seen about the class, its attributes, its functions, about the object and how a class and an object are related. Now next we move over to what is the way of interaction between the objects. So we said that object oriented programming is based on two things. One is data structures and interactions. So data structure comprises of data fields and it comprises of the way the data is organized and the methods that are used to implement those data fields. So we had seen about the concept of storing and organizing the data. So now we are going to see how the objects interact with each other. So that is where this messages and methods come into picture. So now we will see how these messages and methods work in object oriented programming. We all know what is a message. A message is nothing but a way of passing some information. So a message is generally transmitted. It is a way of communication from one object to another. So what does this message usually contain when it comes to objects? A message is a request to an object to invoke one of its methods. Now we saw that a class contains data and it contains functions to operate on the data. An object is created for a class which specifically tells what the data holds and what the function does. So, a message is nothing but a request to an object to perform one of its functions. So, that is the interaction between the objects. Generally, one object communicates with another, requesting it to do something in response to its message. So, a message, what does it contain? It contains the name of the method and the arguments of the method. So, from this itself you can find out that a method is similar to a function. Like a function has a name and some arguments, we have seen about the formal and actual arguments in a function. So, similarly a method is nothing but it is also identified by name with some features or some characteristics that are to be sent to it. And based on the response or based on the message, what the message asks the object to do, that particular method will be executed. And every method is associated with a class. We know every class defines some function, and an object invokes a method as a reaction to the receipt of the message. So, there are two objects involved in this message and method interaction. One object is a client which is requesting for some service. So, it is a work of that object to send the message to the object which is supposed to do the work in response to this message. And every method which has to be invoked needs to have a name and needs to have an argument, and every method is defined in a class. So, there are three things involved in this: object, class and method. Two objects to communicate with each other, one method which has to be executed in response to the message, and a class which covers all these three. Every object needs to belong to a class and every method needs to belong to a class. So, this is how interactions take place between objects. Next, we have something called abstract data type. As I said before, a class is an implementation of an ADT. So, here in detail what is that abstract data type we are going to see. It is characterized by two properties. One is a type, it exports a type. Exports a type in the sense it sends out, it shows a type, and it exports a set of operations or interactions or methods or functions or whatever name you can give. It all means something that is done, some work that is done, some task that is done. So, it exports a type in the sense it sends out some signal of some particular type of data. So, an abstract data type is nothing but, now when you say integer, you know what all an integer holds. It holds numerals, and in numerals you should not have any decimal points of fraction. So, all these characteristics of the data type integer is well known by the programming people who have studied that language. Whereas, when you say an abstract data type, it simply tells you about the general features of that type. For example, if you say a class, when you see a class, you know its name, you know what are the data it holds, and you know the name of the function that it holds. But what that function does is specifically given only by the object which is created for that class. So, abstract is nothing but a way of hiding the details which are not necessary for the programmer to know. A class need not tell about how to implement a method. It is enough if the object implements a method, because it is only the objects which is the example of the class, and it is only the object which is having features and behavior. It is only the objects which are going to interact with each other. So, an abstract data type is nothing but it only gives you a superficial idea of what is held in a class, the type of data and the interactions that can be performed on that data. So, that is only the implementation of this abstract data type. Next, we move on to these concepts of inheritance and polymorphism. Now, here we will be seeing only the basic features of what is inheritance and what is polymorphism, because in inheritance you have different kinds and in polymorphism you have different implementations. So, just a overview of what is inheritance and polymorphism in OOP. Now, inheritance holds the same meaning as it is held in a English language. Inheriting is when we get some properties or some features from someone else. Like children inherit the features of their parents, the qualities of their parents, the property of their parents. Similarly, in OOP also the two main concepts involved, classes and objects, we have them inheriting from one another. So, inheritance is someone or something derives a set of attributes from some other thing. An object or a class is inheriting a set of attributes from another class. So, only classes and objects exist in OOP mainly. So, when you say inheritance, it should mean that A class contains features and behavior. An object also holds the features and behavior. So, if at all you can inherit something, it is the features and behavior from other objects and classes. So, in this you have two people involved or two parties involved. One class has to inherit the features from another class. So, there are two terms which are given to these two classes. One is called the subclass, a class which gets the features or gets the properties or the methods, and you have another term called the superclass, which indicates the class from which something is going out. Something is going out in a sense from which the features are being given out, a class from which another class inherits. So, these are the two main terms which are to be kept in mind when we study about inheritance. Inheritance is only involving classes and objects. You have one class and object inheriting from another class or object. So, two classes are involved here. One is a subclass which inherits, another is a superclass from which some attributes or some methods are being inherited. So, we will see about, in this itself there are different variations of inheritance. You can have one class inheriting from another, you can have two or three classes inheriting from one class, and so on. So, we will be seeing about these detailed concepts of inheritance when we study about C++. So, this is just an example. You have maybe say a courier organization. In courier organization you have domestic couriers and international couriers. In domestic couriers you have certain types of courier companies which have their own protocol, their own rules, their own set of places which they go and give the couriers. Similarly, for international you have people who go by flights. You have couriers which tell you that within 1 or 2 or 3 days they take your message across. You have certain couriers which are even faster. So, like this each company will have its own protocol, but the basic features are inherited from their superclass. So, here the courier company is the main superclass from which the domestic and international classes are inheriting some features and methods, because every courier is going to operate the same way. They need to have people, they need to have some matter to transmit, they need to have people and a mode of transport to send that message across, and they have to have some time limit within which they transport that message. So, these basic features can be inherited from the main superclass called courier. Under that, when you have domestic and international, domestic couriers will have to be worried only about the local areas, whereas international couriers have to go across countries and transfer those messages. So, there is some difference between the two. In domestic you have plenty of couriers which inherit the same kind of functions and features, and they refine it according to their company's need, their company's customers and their growth rate. So, this is the way inheritance works. When there are certain common features, they can be inherited. In addition to that, you can refine your own methods and data. In this inheritance, you have something called abstract superclass, like an abstract data type. Like an abstract superclass is something like it just tells you the name of all the objects that are inheriting from it. It will not explicitly give some explanation of some data or method. For example, in this case, this organization is called an abstract superclass, ASC. This is because when you say simply organization, it does not give you any idea of anything. It just means that organization is, it does not even say whether it is a commercial or non-commercial organization. An organization means a group of people who are working for some output, who are working towards some achievement, that is all. It does not give you any other information about what type of organization it is, where it is, how many people are working, what is the work that is to be done in the organization. But here if you see from this organization itself, there are banking, transport, educational organizations, real estate organizations. So, each of them involve a group of people. Banking is associated with finance, transport is associated with movement, educational is associated with imparting knowledge to people, and real estate is totally something that is related with lands and buildings. So, each of these organizations is totally different from the other, but they are all inheriting from some class called organization. So, here organization does not hold anything that is common to all these 4 types of organizations, except for the fact that it involves a large number of people and they all work together to achieve some function. So, this organization is abstract, it does not give you any details about what are the data involved or what are the functions they do. But it is just a term that is used to indicate that bank is an organization, transport companies are an organization, education institutes are an organization, and so on. So, an abstract superclass is something which does not give you any details about the type of data or the operations involved. It is abstract in nature, you cannot learn anything from it. It is just there to indicate that all the classes which are inheriting from it have some features in common. It does not give you any details about what those features are also. So, that is only the concept of an abstract superclass. Next we move to what is called polymorphism. Now, polymorphism is derived from Greek words poly and morphos, which means many forms. That is, there is a concept in OOP where you can have one function or one operator perform several functions. The same function with the same name can do different types of tasks. So, that is the way of implementing polymorphism in object oriented programming. So, it is a concept that helps in executing different operations in response to the same message. So, as I said, in messages and methods, that is the way of interaction between objects. When one object sends a message to another, it does some task and response. So, when for the same message you can have the same function perform different operations, it is called polymorphism. So, it describes how objects with different names respond differently to the same message. So, polymorphism is one object behaving differently to the same message or one function with the same name behaving differently or performing different operations in response to the same message. So, this you will understand better when we see the way it is implemented. So, in types of polymorphism you have static and dynamic polymorphism. So, what is this static polymorphism? An entity existing in different physical forms simultaneously. For example, if you take human beings, that is we ourselves, we all perform different roles at the same time. I can be a teacher, at the same time I can be studying some other course. So, there I become a student, and here when I am taking classes I become a teacher, I am a daughter, I am a mother. So, like this the same me is exhibiting different functions at different times. So, the same object which exists in different physical forms constitutes a static form of polymorphism. The dynamic form of polymorphism, you have an entity which changes its form depending upon the circumstances. So, this is related to concept of binding, which we will be seeing in C++. An example for this is you have these chameleons which change their color when they see an enemy approaching. You have some fishes which send out some kind of enzymes when they know that danger is around. You have frogs which croak to indicate some kind of signal. So, every animal shows out some behavior when it senses danger or when it senses something good. So, like this, based on the object's behavior, based on the object's situation, each object will exhibit a different kind of behavior. That is only dynamic polymorphism. So, we will see later how these types of polymorphism are implemented in C++. So, these are the concepts involved in polymorphism in OOP. Next, we will move to the possible questions that could be asked in this particular topic of the basic concepts in OOP. So, what is actually meant by OOP? It is an object oriented programming paradigm which uses data structures and their interactions. The concept of inheritance is classes and objects getting the features and functions from others. Polymorphism is nothing but a single function responding differently to the same message. Instantiation is the way we create the instance of a class or the way we form objects. Types of polymorphism, we have static and dynamic, and we have seen the features of both. The benefits of OOP are nothing but the use of inheritance and polymorphism which enable us to reuse the code. ADT we have seen in detail, it exports a type, it exports a set of interactions. So, based on the type and interactions, the objects communicate with each other and define their own values. So, in today's session we have been seeing about the OOP concepts, the advanced concepts like inheritance and polymorphism, and the benefits that could be obtained from all these three features in OOP. So, we will move to the next session of C++ programming. Thank you.